What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and today I'm going to be predicting the outcome of Emmanuel Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez, and this is going to be a 12-rounder for the WBO Super Featherweight World Championship, and this fight is going to be Saturday, August 12th, from the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona, and this fight is going to be broadcasted on ESPN, ESPN Plus, or on the ESPN app. And to get into both fighters' resumes, Emmanuel Navarrete, fighting out of Mexico, holds a record of 37 wins with one loss, which came very early on in his career. And he also has 31 wins coming by way of knockout. He is the current WBO Super Featherweight World Champion, and he's also the former WBO Featherweight and former WBO Super Bantamweight World Champion. Currently by BoxRec, he is ranked number 2 in the Super Featherweight division. And to list his one loss and some of his best victories, he lost by unanimous decision in 2012, so about 11 years ago. He lost in a 4-round unanimous decision to Daniel Argueta. But to list some of his best victories, he has defeated Isaac Dogbe by TKO and unanimous decision. He has a unanimous decision victory over Ruben Villa, a TKO win in the 12th round over Christopher Diaz. He also has a unanimous decision victory over Joey Gonzalez, a stoppage victory or a knockout victory over Eduardo Baez, and he's coming off of a very tough TKO win over Liam Wilson, where he got dropped and was arguably down in the fight, and got the stoppage victory. But to get into his opponent's resume, Oscar Valdez, also fighting out of Mexico, holds a very good record as well at 31-1, with 23 wins coming by way of knockout. So these guys both have over 30 wins, only one defeat, so very good records on paper going into the fight. Valdez, he is the former WBC Super Featherweight World Champion and the former WBO Featherweight World Champion, and he is currently ranked number 5 by BoxRec in the Super Featherweight division. So just to list his one loss and some of his best victories, he has a unanimous decision defeat to Shakur Stevenson, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Stevenson is one of the top rising guys, definitely around that pound-for-pound level. And Stevenson beat him pretty clear by points. So, I mean, it's not a bad loss for Valdez in the slightest. But to list some of his best victories, he has defeated Miguel Mariaga by unanimous decision. He's also defeated Scott Quigg by unanimous decision as well. He has a brutal knockout victory over Miguel Berchelt. He also has a unanimous decision victory over Robson Consecao, and that was kind of controversial. I thought Consecao won. But then he also has a unanimous decision victory and a controversial TKO win over Adam Lopez. And that second Adam Lopez fight where he won by decision, he won pretty clear, and it was in his last fight. So in my opinion, this fight is just a great fight to be made. Two very solid Mexican fighters going at it. Obviously, Emmanuel Navarrete, very big fighter for 130, and think about how he was fighting at like 122 and 126. I mean, he's just a huge guy. I still think he has size on Oscar Valdez, and Valdez has been fighting at 130 for a while now. So, I mean, yeah, this is going to be a very good fight, in my opinion, or a very fun fight, I should say. I do think that there's one fighter that I think is definitely going to win this, but I don't think it's going to be a bad fight while it lasts. And I think that this fighter is going to get the victory. And I think that fighter is Oscar Valdez. I think Valdez, even though he has less experience in the ring, obviously in terms of fights he has much more experience in terms of facing better opposition. The thing with Emmanuel Navarrete, his resume isn't that great. I'm going to be 100% honest. His wins over Isaac Dogbe are his best wins. And then otherwise, besides that, he's only beaten guys who were like top 20, maybe top 15 level. Obviously, the only other guy he beat that was like top 10 was Joey Gonzalez, around that level, like top 10, top 11, top 12. Somewhere around there was Joey Gonzalez. And Christopher Diaz, I'd say, is around the top 20, top 15 level. And same with Eduardo Baez. And I think that Liam Wilson in his last fight is even lower than that, or I had him lower than that going into the fight. But Liam Wilson, this was the first fight Emmanuel Navarrete had at 130 in his last fight, and he got dropped, was getting really beat to the punch by Liam Wilson up until Wilson started to tire a bit. Navarrete took advantage and got the stoppage, but that was like the first time he's ever been hit by a solid 130, And Liam Wilson, to my knowledge, isn't like the hardest hitter. But Valdez, I mean, he could pack a punch, and I think that in this fight, Valdez is going to be utilizing his counter-punching abilities. He's a very, very good counter-puncher, has very fast hands. We saw that especially against Miguel Berchelt, where he was just countering him all night, landed one big punch, and sent him to sleep. So I think that, just to break this fight down round by round, to talk about the early rounds in this fight, I think that Valdez is going to be a bit more tentative, finding openings where he could land. He might go off to a quick start, be landing combinations on Navarrete like Berchelt, but I think the early rounds, like the first 4 rounds, are going to be pretty competitive, if I'm going to be honest. I think that Navarrete will have more success based on being more active and just going forward and being the one. I mean, this is contrary to Navarrete's last fight where he was pretty much down in the early rounds, and then the later rounds he started to pick it up. I think in this fight, it'll be close in the early rounds, and I think Valdez will start to pick it up and ultimately get a stoppage. But I think after the first 4 rounds, it's going to probably be like 38-38, a draw. But I think that Navarrete will have more success in the earlier part based off of just activity. But I mean, who knows? It could be Valdez just landing good counter punches and just stays in control the entire fight. I mean, in some of these bigger fights between 2 big names, we've seen one guy come out dominantly. Like we saw even against Crawford and Spence recently, and throughout the year with other big guys, where we saw, even though it was kind of close early, then we started to see Benavidez dominate, plant late, and even with Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis. Davis won that fight easy. So, I mean, with some of these bigger fights, we've seen one-sided finishes or one-sided victories for these fighters. So I think that I could very well see Valdez winning those early rounds, considering Navarrete doesn't have the greatest of starts in his fights. But Valdez, I would say as well, isn't the greatest starter. But in this one, I think it's going to be pretty competitive in the first 4 rounds. But then I think after like the 5th, it's probably going to be 48-47 in Valdez's favor. I think Valdez will start to open up a bit, start to land more shots, start to find more openings, and start to land those big counter overhands that he's accustomed to. And I could definitely see him dropping Navarrete in those middle rounds, like rounds 5 and 6. I could definitely see Navarrete getting dropped or getting hurt with some big counter punch from Valdez. But I think Valdez primarily will be very cautious, very tentative, very technical in this fight, throwing big counter punches on the outside. Or not on the outside, but I think just gauging distance and finding his openings. And I think he will be landing big shots on Navarrete. And I think that after 6 rounds, it'll probably be 58-56 in Valdez's favor. I think it will start to swing in his favor going into the second half. And then I think anywhere in that second half, I could see Valdez stopping Emmanuel Navarrete from like round 7 to rounds 10, maybe rounds 8 to round 10. I see Navarrete getting stopped. I think Valdez will, in rounds 5 and 6, he'll start to soften up Navarrete, start to land those big shots, and I think Navarrete will not be in a place that he wants to be. Obviously, against Liam Wilson, Wilson wasn't as polished as as Valdez is. Valdez is a much more polished, experienced veteran, and who has over 30 fights and over 30 victories. But Liam Wilson hurt Navarrete bad and really should have got a stoppage. But, I mean, he's much too inexperienced. He had only like 13 fights going into that fight with 11 victories or something like that. 12 fights with 11 wins. So, I mean, much less experienced fighter and much less power on Wilson compared to Valdez. Valdez is a much, much better fighter compared to Navarrete's last fight. That's why I think Valdez will be catching Navarrete a lot, because Navarrete has a very unorthodox and awkward style where he likes to go forward with his long up jabs, treat it almost like it's a pure uppercut. I mean, he really has a very awkward style, leaves his chin open a lot. So I think Valdez is going to capitalize on that in sort of those mid to later rounds, like rounds 5, 6, and 7. I think Navarrete will be getting softened up, will be getting hit to the chin a lot, will be getting countered a lot, and I think Valdez will start to really have the big edge in this fight. And I think that going into like round 8, I think it will be probably like 68-65 for Valdez, something like that, like 5 rounds to 2. And then I think, like I said before, anywhere from like rounds 8 to rounds 10, I think that Oscar Valdez will get the victory. I think that Valdez will start to land bigger counter punches, can definitely drop Navarrete, hurt him bad, stop him, and I think that's what's going to happen in sort of the start of those later rounds, as I think Valdez will just be too much for Emmanuel Navarrete, and I think he will get the job done. So if you made it this far in the video, please comment down below your pick on this fight, leave a like, and hit the subscribe button. So overall, I believe that Oscar Valdez will defeat Emmanuel Navarrete by stoppage or knockout anywhere between rounds 8, 9, and 10, and I think he will be ahead probably 5 rounds to 2 heading into that stoppage. So overall, through this victory, Oscar Valdez will be able to become the new WBO super featherweight world champion. And with this victory, he will become a 2-time super featherweight champion and overall 3-time champion in boxing. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.